Welcome to Fandom Power.
What's up, guys? It's Wes, Andy, and Hank, and we are back once again. It's another episode of Fandom Power presents The Fan Batch, or as I like to call it, Prelude to the Road to the Book of Boba Fett.
Oh man. Oh man.
I can't help it. That makes me chuckle every time.
It's a little we might have to wait a little longer for it, but the candy is going to be very sweet when it comes. I'll tell you that.
It's kind of funny because we were a little bold last week, or no, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago we were a little bold and like, okay, 2 episodes, we're getting them.
Yeah, well, I bet the Falcon on the second last week. I lost the Falcon.
You better hand the keys over. Guess what?
Yeah. Way to go, Lando.
Yeah.
So
nice.
But if we can just delay the deal for a few days longer, I think we'll get our anti-hero.
You know, I'm still firmly convinced that is the way that the show is going. So much so, I guess, so caught up last week in the actual plot beats that I actually forgot. There was a major piece of info that I wanted to talk about last week to sort of tie up sort of how I feel like that introduction is going to happen, and it goes back to the Mandalorian. And I'm just going to bring this up here for everybody to have a look at. So I'm just put up an image of it's Boba Fett and Fennec Shand in season 2 of the Mandalorian when they're at the stone there,
the Seeing Stone.
Yeah, the Seeing Stone. So we know that it's Boba Fett that saves Fennec Shand out in the desert. And given what we know about bounty hunters in Star Wars, particularly after last week's episode where Fennec Shand says to Cad Bane, you of all people should know it's about the price. There's got to be a reason why Boba Fett saved her life. You can't tell me that he just stumbled out into the desert, found her body at near death, and out of the goodness of his heart decided to save her.
In that scene from season 1 where they lay it out on the line, it's so much Boba Fett. You had to work for it, but
yeah,
the jangle of the boot, the theme song, so there was so many crumbs to indicate that it was Boba Fett from the get-go. And I think that's how we're going to get this. It's the gateway is their relationship and how far it goes back. It makes sense because, maybe if there's an angle, but it seems like going above and beyond to like turn somebody into a droid to save their life.
We made an analogy early on in our show about how, back in The Mandalorian, how the Fennec Boba relationship is the mirror of the Jango Zam relationship. Like they were kind of partners.
Fully. We
don't know how long the Jango and Zam had worked together prior to Zam's demise, but presumably they had worked together at least a few times.
Yeah, they worked together in the comics and some of the Legend stuff more extensively than the movie. Like, they made her more important, certainly.
I can't help but, surmise that Fennec and Boba have a similar relationship in the sense that I think at this point in the history or in the timeline, and specifically where the Bad Batch is concerned, I think that Fennec and Boba, they already have an established relationship that we just haven't seen yet. It may be strictly professional at this point, but Fennec Shand, who is now aware that Omega is a part of a larger plot for potentially nefarious purposes, may have an interest in telling Boba Fett that there is another. And as we've already sort of touched on before, when Boba Fett finds out, and it's not a matter of if, it's when Boba Fett finds out that he has a sister, you can't tell me that he's not going to come knocking.
And if anybody has the ability to get a hold of Boba Fett, like track a clone, if it's got to be the Kaminoans. And
Yes.
so my money is on Nalase. And
Yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
as long
like
as she doesn't have a ton,
making the
we get-
connection. Right. Right. So if she hasn't already hired Boba Fett and Boba Fett has sent Fennec Shan to do the do, then
right.
we might see them meet. So we might see the beginning of their relationship. But
Yeah.
I think I feel like kind of like you that we'll probably see uh, an already established relationship.
Yeah, I think so on some level, and it could just be that simple, Hank. It could be that she's a subcontract of him, maybe.
Right, because
Well,
he's got the Crate's Claw, that little guild he's got. He's got a little,
Yeah.
So it's, she's an upper and comer, and these are, ostensibly Bosk was not the
Right.
preeminent, and they all come up. They set even though they're all on sort of stage in Empire, they set Dengar and IG-88 as adversaries always in the modern comics.
Yeah.
So those two are they're not like affiliated. The fact that you see them on the bridge standing, they're not killing each other, is supposed to be like just amazing that in the presence of Vader, they're not tearing each other to shreds, because normally they would be. Yeah, kind of cool.
Again, though, in that whole bounty hunter, in the bigger picture, we're now like we've got a taste of what guilds, bounty hunting guilds, look like in the Star Wars universe through the Mandalorian. We have reinforcing statements from Fennec Shan talking about, price is everything, that, for the right price, we can put stuff aside and we can, I don't know if the word is be civil,
Right.
not be homicidal towards each other.
Yeah, I mean, literally, Din Djarin says, "I'll split the bounty with you," and that's acceptable to a droid bounty hunter. So there is some sort of,
there's an honor among thieves.
That's exactly the phrase I was thinking. Yeah,
absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah.
But to go back and just to re-hit this point, if they do a rehashing of that animatic, with Cad Bane on one side and Boba on the other, perhaps they get there because Cad Bane already established has his surrounding allies.
Yeah.
And Fennec Shan needs some backup herself, which will bring that into the fold.
That's entirely possible. I mean, if you look at those bounty hunter episodes from the Clone Wars, and you saw that the cadre of people that he had surrounded himself with, we've still got Embo and Aura Singh and some of the other Clone Wars bounty hunters are still active. So certainly it wouldn't be a far stretch for Cad Bane to put a crew together, for his own interests, and then have a whole, as you said in the comics, Hank, a bounty hunter war.
Yeah, no, it's true.
That could be an interesting play out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I think we've kind of wrapped it up here on how we think we're going to get to Boba Fett. I just wanted to make sure that we hit that for people who just aren't, as intimately familiar with the connections between all the media, that it's important to know, like, that whole he didn't save her for no reason. There was something else going on there.
Definitely.
And I think we're going to see that play out over the course of if not this show, then definitely, of course, the Book of Boba Fett, which
kind of cool if she was a changeling too. It was just sort of her
really.
Default. Yeah, I'd buy it.
Although now with all of the cybernetic parts, would that even?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
How's that work?
So this one's cool. This one, it's the Bad Batch episode 10. This one's called Common Ground. It's debuted Friday, July 2nd, 2021. It has a runtime of 24 minutes and 33 seconds without the credits, or a solid 28 minutes if you want to sit through all the language versions. This one's written by Gursimran Sandhu and directed by our old pal Saul Ruiz. This week's synopsis reads as: the Batch has their ideology challenged. I think we should just kind of talk thematically here for a second about that theme of common ground, because it comes up quite a bit in the nuance of the episode, where we see, once again, I'm gonna touch on Echo, because Echo is kind of a bit of a sounding board for one side of that coin this week, whereas maybe the client is the other side of that, where Echo's still sort of in that black and white, I'm a soldier. There's only, one point of view. And this week's episode puts that whole notion to the test.
Yeah, absolutely. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Ostensibly, the Clone Wars is analogous to World War One in the way that colonists and empire clashed and over territory, trying to make their stakes in the galaxy or on Earth bigger. Right, just expanding borders. It was really just a border expansion thing.
Yep.
And you see the fallout. What's really important, the common ground is also between worlds that were previously at war. And now we see that the common ground is that they're all oppressed by the Empire. It doesn't matter if you were a separatist or a republic before. Maybe the separatists have a chance to rebel before because republic just became Empire. So
I'm going to talk about that a little bit later.
It was something you were still used to, but
it's going to come up later in my notes organically. But I have some questions around that. Former Confederate worlds now being part of the Empire versus former Republic worlds now being part of the newly minted Empire. And there's some ideological differences there. I mean, again, two sides of the war, but now under one common government. And it's interesting the way that it's depicted this week.
And it's not an accident that we just don't go to any Confederate planet. We're going to the Confederate capital.
Yeah.
Right. So.
All right. You want to get into it?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. This week's episode opens with a shot of the Senate building in the capital city on the planet of Raxus. As you just said, the seat of government, the seat of power for the former Confederacy of Independent States, or independent systems, I should say. The separatists. Pretty cool looking architecture there. I don't remember a whole lot. It gives me sort of this Victorian England kind of vibe. Like you can almost see London Bridge in there across the top. It's pretty cool looking though.
And the city, the other buildings around it are vast and large. That central castle type thing is ginormous. And there's skyscrapers in the foreground, right?
Absolutely. As you say, it was the seat of government for the former Confederacy. And we get a shot of a balcony overlooking a square in front of the Senate building, while an Imperial officer, Captain Bragg, is seen addressing the assembled people below while they jeer and boo at her. They do not like this woman. And very shortly, she's going to kind of give us an indication as to why that might be.
It's kind of like somebody stepping up and not being the Pope. Very Vatican-ish vibe to this whole place.
You're expecting the Pope and you get the lead singer from Ghost.
Yeah.
All the Ghost fans in the world just went, yeah. All right. The officer goes on to espouse the virtues of the Empire, saying that all planets within the Confederacy of Independent Systems would be treated fairly in exchange for their loyalty, which, according to the young woman, has not been forthcoming. She then goes on to say that a mandatory curfew is about to be put in place and that the curfew was approved by their very own Senator Avi Singh, who will now address the crowd.
There's something going on. It's crazy here when you think of this is the conquering German war machine giving a speech in Washington. This is the capital of the former enemy.
That's right.
The connotations here, no wonder the guy doesn't want to fold. And it's not the first time we've been here, right? We've been here during the Clone Wars, and that's one of the places where they actually do a really good job of, for lack of a better term, humanizing the separatists.
Yeah.
You'll recall that Padme and Ahsoka go on a mission there to try to stop the war, literally try to negotiate head to head. Because her former, Padme's former mentor is a senator, I think from Ord Mantell or Onderon. Yeah. She's a senator from Onderon.
Oh, that's right. It's Senator Bontieri.
Bontieri, yeah, right. Yeah. And then Ahsoka meets that other senator, and their stories are very similar. And so it goes a long way to establish connections and blur the lines way back in the Clone War. So again, it's very important that we're returning here.
It is, yeah. So the floor is turned over to Senator Avi Singh, and Avi Singh with his droid companion GS8, who've been up until now have been standing sort of on the balcony, looking on helplessly, knowing that he's been propped up as a puppet for the Empire. So, like you say, like I know that the Separatists were on the losing side of the war, but I have to say, this is where I was saying earlier, I wanted to talk about this just a little bit more, because particularly the way that it was presented through Star Wars Legends, and even in, now Hank, you've read the novelization of Star Wars. So you remember in the prologue they talk about Palpatine's rise to power and how the solidifying of the Imperial government was, to me, I always thought that it was something that occurred over a much longer period of time, like years and years and years, till we see at the beginning of A New Hope, when the last remnants of the Senate have been swept away.
He describes it like like a tree that rotted from within.
Yeah,
which gives is the sense of time that you're talking about.
Right, yeah. So here we are, weeks, early after Order 66, and we have that classic Empire is bad. Like, we've just annexed you, conform or else. And I thought that was more of a gradual process. So, but it brings up the question for me: Are former Republic worlds getting the same? There again, this ideological difference where the Republic was the winning side of the war. So presumably, some Republic worlds, when they flipped over to become the Empire, they're like, okay, we're the Empire now, and they don't care.
Like, sure, Coruscant, I bet.
Sure.
I bet we did see on the planet,
right?
We did, yeah.
Where they go marching down the street and everybody's cheering.
Yeah, it's a big rah rah.
Yeah,
that's the funny thing about totalitarian regimes, is if you toe the line, you're going to do fine. Exactly. Even if you in your heart you know what's going on is wrong, if you toe the line, you're going to be fine, and that's the huge problem with that.
I found myself thinking about this sort of like, when Dooku went out and became the figurehead for the Confederacy. You really get this in the Revenge of the Sith novel. He believed that he was right. He actually believed that the Republic as a government had stagnated, and that separation from the Republic was the right thing to do. So he believed in the movement that the Confederacy represented. So you have to think, we've lost the war now. So now we are the Republic, which has now just been rebranded as the Empire. They don't feel any different than they did during the war.
There was also another return to Raxus involving Dooku, where I think it was an abandoned, there might even be semi-finished episodes, but it's an abandoned plot line from Clone Wars where Asajj Ventress teams up with oh my goodness, Quinlan Vos in an attempt to assassinate Dooku on Raxus.
Interesting.
I think that's one of the it might have made it into a novel,
right?
That I haven't read. I believe it did make it into a novel. And it's like a redemption arc for Ventress, and they don't really touch on that. I'm going way off topic, but she was a Jedi Padawan before she was turned.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's just interesting to see the contrast between, as you said, Andy, we saw this on a former Republic world where it was like ticker tape parade and everybody was cheering. Now we're visiting a Confederate world where it's like, boo,
Yeah, totally.
So it just begs the question, like, where the public perception is concerned, there's such a stark contrast. But as the senator steps up to the railing, he instructs his droid servant GS8 to carry out a very specific set of instructions, with the condition, should something happen to me, I need you to do exactly what I say. So, clearly he's got this sense of this may not go the way that he wants it to. So interesting to note here, I'm just going to bring him back up here so we can all get another look at him. Oh my Lord, where are we at here? Did I go too far? There we go. Let's bring him up again. So Senator Avi Singh, I don't know if you guys picked it out. It's voiced by Alexander Siddig.
Mm-hmm.
Not familiar with Alexander Siddig, you may recognize him as Dr. Julian Bashir from Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Oh, I thought it was the Prince of Dorne from Game of Thrones.
Oh my God, he's a wonderful, wonderful actor.
Yeah, he's great.
He's really good in this. I really, really liked him.
Second Star Trek actor to jump ship and play a separatist senator too.
Who's the other
one? George Takei. I think season 2 of Clone Wars. Yeah.
So, with confidence in his voice, the senator encourages his people to follow the new laws set forth by the Empire. But as his speech continues, the conviction in his voice begins to wane. Pausing for a moment, the senator decides that he cannot abandon his responsibility to the people and publicly denounces the imperial occupation as unjust. And then before the senator's speech can get too carried away, Captain Bragg takes him into custody and orders her troops to disperse the unruly crowd in the square below. At the same time, GS-8 quietly slips away in the commotion. And I mean, like, I think of these like the United States during the Civil Rights Movement and how, the police were used to clear the streets. And that's a pretty scary looking image when you see, like, at least 3 ATTEs and all those troops.
Looks like Minnesota from a year ago.
Yeah.
I had an issue with this scene because, like, the people are clearly, when they say, disperse, go home, whatever, it's like the riot line.
Yeah.
And they're still fighting back. And then they say, bring up the rest. Where did they come from? Like, they get there for like a slow moving machine. They're on the scene really
Yeah, they
quick.
do. The response times are pretty fast in this episode.
And then
they could have been there for protection before, and now
maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's not a far stretch. The walkers, I can see that being an issue, but the troops themselves, it's not a far stretch to say that they weren't maybe stationed in the building.
Yeah.
Much like the rotunda on Coruscant had the Senate Guard. I'm sure they had something in place.
Yeah. Because, like, I can see, a little bit of pushback if it's just a line of riot cops.
Yep.
But when you have a tank at your back, you're not going to push too hard.
No, it's
and 3.
I mean, you got to expect that they're going to have a pretty large force on the sort of former enemy homeworld, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, again, they've come here to, like, quell any sort of they're not having even an inkling of a rebellion, or it's not even that yet, but they are definitely squashing any sort of resistance.
Yeah. So down in the square below, as Imperial troops continue to clear out the area, GS-8 takes cover behind a stone column and, using her handheld comlink, sends a message asking for help because her master, Senator Avi Singh, has been taken into custody by Imperial forces and is now in grave danger. I really love the characterization of this droid. I mean, she's the classic looking, what's it, the Death Star droid, I guess is what the counter-action figure would have been called.
Yeah, is it like RA7? Is that what they're designated?
I can't remember the
I have it here on a note.
Model number.
I got it on a note somewhere.
But she's our 3PO for the episode, and she's she's really good. Back on Ord Mantell, the Bad Batch make their way through the streets, headed back to Sid's place. Sitting atop Wrecker's shoulders, Omega enjoys a carton of Mantell mix.
Running up that tab again.
While the group discusses their next mission. But knowing that there are at least 2 bounty hunters after Omega, Hunter decides that there's too much heat on them and Omega needs a break. But there is no break to be had because Sid meets the group at the door with her data pad in hand, containing the details for yet another mission.
There's a little scene here where Echo is sniffing the Mantell mix, contemplating whether he should eat it or not. And I was wondering, does he eat food anymore? Like, how much is left?
I don't know. Yeah, it's the RoboCop thing, right? When they take him apart, you're kind of looking, oh, there's a lung and there's a nervous system, and
right. Yeah.
Maybe the Mantell mix will be the final straw that bonds them all together.
Perfect.
Yeah, really.
In a final, we're all a fully functioning squad now. Here's our mantle.
Yeah. So we have this image here of Sid, and she pops up a little hollow, and it's a hollow of Senator Singh. Sid explains that the mission is to rescue a former separatist senator from an Imperial outpost, but Hunter outrightly refuses. However, Sid, being Sid, reminds Hunter of the debt that they owe her and adds that a job is a job. But with the Empire on the tail of the Bad Batch, Hunter doesn't want to take Omega to an Imperial-controlled world. And in a rather self-serving way, Sid suggests they leave Omega with her, that by keeping Omega safe, it ensures more credits for her. Resolved that this is the logical course of action, Hunter turns to break the news to Omega. And Omega, with a snap salute, reports that she's ready for the next mission. I actually quite like that little sergeant. And when Hunter explains that she has to sit this one out, we can see that she's confused and upset, because in her eyes, she's now part of the team. But Hunter reminds her that part of being a soldier means following orders, and Omega begrudgingly accepts the explanation with a sigh. And as the batch departs for Raxus, Sid says, "I've got a mission for you," and promptly puts Omega to work cleaning the bar. Now, as we cut to the Havoc Marauder, now traveling through hyperspace, the members of Clone Force 99 discuss the mission that they're about to undertake. This is a cool little bit, I know, touching on that nuance, that the show seems to be throwing at us left and right, where we dip into the themes of common ground. And as I was saying, how I'm gonna harp on Echo again, because he's one half of that coin. Echo's having some trouble accepting the fact that they are, in fact, on their way to help a separatist senator. While Hunter says that he always thought they'd make it to Raxus someday, but not like this. So presumably, visions of storming the Capitol, I think.
There's, the separatists did that to Echo.
Yeah.
It's something that none of the other ones have in common with him. That he was actually tortured and altered, and his humanity stripped. And how would any of us feel?
Yeah.
More so for him than any other, and the fact that he was a reg too. He operated by the books with, he was an ARC trooper with his troops. And
I think
my neighbors are going crazy.
Part of that really shows through here. And I mean, it totally, I glossed over the fact that, he had been tortured, and you're right. That has to be weighing on him on some level.
Yeah. And some of that PTSD we talked about early on in the show, that we were wondering, it might rear its head, and we thought, would it be too derivative of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier stuff?
Right,
but
right.
Certainly there's something deeper going on with Echo, and it's harder for him to not see the black and whites. I think you used that term in the chat.
Yeah.
Of this, he's not taking it with such a grain of salt as the rest of them.
No, not at all. So as the Havoc Marauder makes for planetfall, a pair of Alpha 3 Nimbus-class V-Wing starfighters intercept the batch, settling into an escort formation. Oh, man. I want to talk about this for a second, because this starfighter design, as far as I'm concerned, was criminally underused.
That's so good.
In the films and in the animation. We barely saw these. We saw one a couple of weeks ago, patrolling over Camino, and we saw a pair of them in Revenge of the Sith escorting the or I guess we can't say Supreme Chancellor anymore, escorting the Emperor's command shuttle. But the Nimbus class, I want to just touch on a little bit, because we like starships in Star Wars. There we go. The Nimbus, the V-Wing. So stylistically speaking, the V-Wing was kind of meant to represent the precursor to the TIE Fighter. And they do share some design elements, in the sense that twin ion engines and the large radiator panels, and just like a TIE Fighter, is a non-pressurized cabin. So the clone pilots actually have to wear a hardened vac suit just to fly it, which is kind of cool. But here's the thing, right? This is the fighter that was billed as the space superiority fighter that replaced the Torrent fighter. And I mean, I know they say that it came out late in the war, but like, man, that last season, like when we were watching Revenge of the Sith and we saw that battle over Coruscant, like I'm sure they were in there, but man, I just don't think they were used enough.
Yeah,
anyway, I love.
You can fly them in Battlefront 2.
I love that design,
and they're fun to fly.
Maybe it's a money thing for Star Wars.
It could be.
Like if they're the personal escort of the Emperor, you got to imagine that they're like a high class fighter. So they wouldn't just deploy, wave upon wave.
Right. Well, but same thing, right? Like I say, like they're the spiritual precursor to the TIE fighter. No hyperdrive, no pressurization. Just essentially a cockpit pod sitting on top of an engine with some.
They have that sort of Jedi starfighter nose. It's like they're moving from one thing to another very slowly.
Yeah, there's the transitional element in there. So one of the clone pilots orders the batch to transmit a clearance code, because we've never heard that before. And after a brief moment of tension, much like we saw on the command shuttle during Return of the Jedi, the code checks out and the Havoc Marauder is cleared on it to continue on its way. We get another instance here with Echo where he still sees things kind of in black and white. He's not convinced that the clearance code will check out. And even after it does, he's still not convinced that whoever they're working for is trustworthy.
It's a trap.
Yeah, exactly. Landing at the rendezvous just outside the capital city, the batch debarked the Havoc Marauder. Cool little, looks like an autumn kind of, fall colors, foresty area. Lots of forest outside the city here.
The repeating theme of getting the jump on them, they parked far away.
That's right. Yeah. Debarking the Marauder, Echo and Tech are debating the relevancy of the client being a former separatist until Hunter tells them to forget about politics, reminding them that they're there to do a job. When from behind a nearby tree, a very relieved GS-8 walks out to meet them. She even says something like, I'm relieved to hear that. That they just want to get to work. Well, the batch is very much caught off guard. Where am I at here? The batch is very much caught off guard as they learn that the droid GS-8 is in fact the client. And as she tries to explain the conditions of her master's arrest, Echo cuts her off with a sharp, "We don't care." And Hunter follows that up with, "Just take us to where he's being held." Back on Ord Mantell, a dejected Omega mopes around the bar until Sid finally can't take it anymore and finally asks, "What's wrong?" Did you see how she's just kind of like blankly staring and then just barely moving the sponge? Like, all right.
Typical kid.
Very much so. Omega thinks that it's unfair that she's been left behind, and Sid, being who she is, gives her the reality check that, hey, life isn't fair. At the same time, she imparts a little bit of wisdom, telling Omega that if you don't like it, you should do something about it. And then promptly follows that up with an insult. And maybe if you weren't so helpless, those 4 laser brains wouldn't have left you here with me. And the next scene, it's really cool to see her be, a kid where, and I don't know if you picked it up. Did you notice that she's, when I say she, Sid is carrying like that staff? Omega hops off, like looks at her, literally bats the staff out of her way, jumps off the bar stool, and storms across the bar, shaking her head the whole way.
It's true.
Oh, it was so good.
It's wicked.
All right, so Sid follows Omega across the bar to the booth that she's now sitting at. So Omega actually turns and says to her, "I'm not useless." While Sid tries to explain how she promised Hunter to keep her safe, but Omega hisses back at her for how much. which I thought was kind of cool. That, you know, this kid's smart, man, and she's picking up on the frenemy thing now.
No, big time.
Back on Raxus, Imperial troops and walkers continue to patrol around the Senate building. The building is covered in surveillance cameras with additional troops standing guard outside. Get a nice little shot here of through Tech's visor, or Tech Vision. Last week we had what was it, Hunter Vision with the Hunter cam with the Republic Commando view. Now we get Tech Vision.
I'm just noticing the numbers aren't Aurebesh.
Are they actual numbers?
Yeah, they look like actual numbers in that.
So
shot.
there's a precedence for actual numbers in Star Wars and characters, because a lot of stuff in the original Star Wars was in English, and I can't remember what the canonical explanation for that is, but there is a precedent for it.
Some of them seem to be hybrids, like the 9s look like they might be hybrids.
Maybe
similar to the way on Wrecker's helmet, the 9s are sort of dots with dashes. So they could be like a stylized rather than the dots, which are really hard to read.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Using an array of sensors within his visor, Tech determines that there are 6 guards outside the building and several more inside. Seething with suspicion, Echo pins GS8 against the wall, accusing the droid of setting them up. And he is not a happy camper. And, I know that droids are automatons and maybe don't have feelings, but I got to tell you, if I was GS8 and I had these 2 guys kind of up my neck, I'd be a little nervous.
It's true. And to hammer the point home that, that he's reluctantly doing this for the enemy, it's not only is it separatists, but there's a droid involved, just to hammer the point home.
Well, I want to talk about that for a second too, because the irony and we've talked about this right from day one, and the show has made it very, has like put it in your face. Clones are property. Clones have no rights in society. They are property. Guess what? So are droids. How ironic that these no right, sentient with no right pieces of property are now working for a sentient no right piece of property.
It's true. It's how you can commit murder in a cartoon.
It's true. It is true.
Involved, right? Like,
right. I think again, and in its nuanced way, there's that common ground theme coming through just one more time.
So,
but GS8 refutes the claim, stating that her programming won't allow her to place her allies in danger. And Wrecker, sharing in Echo's suspicion, adds, "We're not allies." So, creeping low and in single file, the batch moves swiftly down an alley towards the Senate building, avoiding the guards and staying out of the camera's sight lines. Hunter silently subdues a lone guard, giving the group a clear path to the front of the building. And
this reminded me of the approach on Theed from The Phantom Menace.
Oh,
when Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon are skulking through the city trying to get, establish the odds. And so it's almost like the inverse of that. They're, we're tracking clones here. They were tracking droids.
Yeah.
And the city, this part of the city really feels like the Theed from the Battlefront game. Like the way
it does,
wide streets and flowers and sunshine, but then chaos.
Peering out from the alleyway, Hunter spots 2 Imperial troops guarding a doorway that they need to get through. With the decision to use GS8 as a distraction, he shoves the droid out into the open street, where she is quickly spotted by the guards. And the guards shout at her that it's a restricted area, but GS8 responds that this is her master's residence and suggests they leave.
No, you leave.
Yeah. And then does her like, oh, and she takes off. Then, quickly retreating back into the alleyway, the 2 guards blindly give chase. With the camera still fixed on the entrance to the alleyway, we can hear a brief scuffle punctuated by 2 loud thuds, and the batch, along with GS8, then emerge and head for the door.
Another legacy moment. I was so reminded of that moment in A New Hope on the Falcon when the scanning crew goes in and all you hear is
Can you give me a hand up here?
Yeah, it's so good. Perfect. Just the thump thump sound.
Yeah. With the doorway now clear, GS8 inputs an entry code to access the door. We get a little bit of Aurebesh here, and I mean, even I picked up on this one. I didn't even have to open the alphabet to look at it. It says locked, and then he opens it, unlocked.
So does that mean we're starting to learn how to? Because I didn't look it up either.
To
I
recognize
got it,
the letters.
We started to learn how to read Aurebesh.
I think the context for this one was easy: red light and door. Okay.
Sure, but that's how you teach a kid, right? Apple, red, apple.
Yeah.
Right? So I mean, let's write a children's Aurebesh book, guys.
Seriously.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
The group moves quickly through the courtyard, avoiding a clone patrol. When they reach another control panel, Tech patches into the security system, gaining control of the security cameras. We get a nice image of some clones and some ATTE walkers on his data pad. Opening the door, Hunter orders Wrecker and Echo to clear the upper level while he and Tech, along with GS8, will take the ground floor and the lower levels. And for a while, everything goes along quite smoothly as each group hits their objectives using a variety of tactics and weapons like stun bolts, stun grenades, and hand-to-hand combat. And in a comedic moment, Hunter accidentally knocks a vase off of a pedestal, which is deftly caught by GS8, who in true protocol droid form admonishes them with a "do be careful," adding that the vase is priceless and was gifted to her master for his years of public service. I had a pretty good laugh at that. Never seen 3PO move that fast. Snatch a vase mid-flight.
And it's important to point out here, though, the batch is still using stun tactics. Like, they're refusing to kill their clone brothers.
They are.
Whereas the clones, full fire, like, game on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So again, as we comedically or jokingly just said, it's a way to, in the Disney era of Star Wars, I mean, that's how you can get away with mass murder on screen is, murder droids. So even though that the Empire is the enemy, they're still clones. So I mean, there is a story beat there for them not to want to shoot to kill, but
right,
is there also like it's a kid's show and
a necessity to not?
Yeah,
I don't think it has the G.I. Joe sort of connotation, like where there'd be a massive explosion, but
they don't miss.
Right.
That's
right.
And in G.I. Joe, you tens of thousands of rounds flying.
Right. Right, exactly.
Guys get hit all the time.
I think it's a conscious decision, and it has been since the moment they were put at odds with them on Kamino.
Yeah,
to stun them and not to kill them, because somewhere in they believe if we could just get these chips out of their heads, we would have an army. Like that there's whole,
notion of clones being prisoners in their own heads, right?
There's got to be an RPG there somewhere where we're waking clones up to fight the Empire. I mean, there's so much.
There's some scuttlebutt in the fan community that may be what we're building to, that there may be a big blowout on Kamino where there may be a clone uprising, and that still may play out, and that could be the finale where the last sort of sweeping the clones under the rug and going to 100% conscripted army.
Yeah.
Back at the bar, Sid plays a game of Baczyk against one of the regulars while Omega looks on from the bar. And of course, we've seen Baczyk played out a few times in Star Wars media.
Don't play against a Wookiee.
Yeah. Surveying the table, Omega warns Sid about making her next move, but Sid dismisses her sarcastically and commits to the move anyway. And when Sid's hologram is defeated by her opponent, Omega says, "I told you." Thoroughly unimpressed, Sid mocks Omega, saying, "Well, expert, what should I do next?" And this is actually a pretty cool moment here, because Omega quietly gets up, approaches the table, presses a few buttons, and using Sid's last remaining hologram, which just happens to be the Mantelian Savrip, wins the game. And if that doesn't ring a bell for you, the Mantelian Savrip, it's the same chess piece that R2 used to beat Chewbacca back in the original Star Wars.
Still has both his arms, by the way.
Yeah.
That's a myth. It's a myth perpetuated by Corellians.
Yeah. When Sid asks Omega, "How did you know how to do that?" Omega tells her that it's a strategy game, and she's good at strategy. Sid then goes on
It's
to
a
question
Jedi trait.
how good, like good enough to win a few matches for money? And Omega coyly replies, well, that depends on what my cut is. And they finally settle on 60%.
She's come so far in that moment. Like she understands the game, and she's actually better at the game now. Like not Dejarik, I mean the game with Sid.
The game of, yes.
And there's so much respect there in that moment that of course she's going to give her 60. Why not?
So this may be like one of the biggest character development moments for Omega yet. The fact that she's I don't want to go so far as to say master strategist, but she may in fact be a master strategist. So again, like, and we talk offline all the time. I mean, you guys that are listening and watching, like we, early on, we kind of thought, is she force sensitive? And I've gone back and forth on it a few times now, and I'm still not 100% sure. But like you just said, Hank, is this a Jedi trait? Is it the Force showing through?
And it doesn't have to be fully developed either.
No.
It can just be this, what happens to a person that is strong with the Force, but is never, ever given formal training. And
right.
That's kind of like, and it's that RPG sort of uber character that we've talked about, but in the coolest way. I've never heard anybody, even theory, go, I'd hate that if that happened.
It's the Obi-Wan Kenobi's explanation to Han Solo for luck.
Right. And it explains characters like Chirrut Umwe.
Yep.
Who clearly, come on, let's face it.
Yeah.
And clearly exhibited Force-like abilities.
Yeah, that's right.
To take out a squad of stormtroopers with a staff while blind, you're using the Force. And so, not formally trained, it's this sort of more of like an intuitive.
That whole, Qui-Gon, the living Force versus the oh my God, the other kind,
the cosmic Force,
right? So, but the living Force, the idea that the Force is its own thing, it's a sentient thing that sometimes controls you,
right?
And that you can give yourself up to it, sort of in the sense of finality, where like becoming a Force ghost, or as you say, like Chirrut Imwe, you could give into the Force and allow it to control your body.
Right.
Maybe it works in that way. So on that level, sure. Is her strategic sensibilities part of her genetic makeup? Maybe part of the, maybe what the Kaminoans have built into her.
So the other thing is, we were speculating early, was she the sum total of all of the Bad Batch? But perhaps the Bad Batch is the parts of her. Right. The reverse of that, like she is the total package, but not in that order. Like they were trying to recreate her, and this is what the Bad Batch was, because they're accelerated age and she isn't.
Yeah, so maybe they came out of the tube at the same time,
or even they perhaps, even though maybe they're younger than she is.
Right. Even though, because of that advanced growth.
Just that, and so maybe it's the inverse of that. Maybe she is the sum total of them, but maybe they're just the parts of her, and her master strategy is certainly Hunter's sort of primary ability.
So I'm going to go so far as to say that just because of what we know through Rise of Skywalker, she's probably not going to be a Jedi. Doesn't mean that she won't be a Force user, but she's not likely to be a Jedi. Certainly, and if she is, she lived, because she's not one of the voices in Rey's head at the end. I'm curious to know, though, like, let's say she does go on, and this is how she solidifies her usefulness to the team, by becoming sort of, Hunter's the tactical planner, Tech is the tech guy, Echo is the the infiltration guy, Wrecker's the muscle, and Crosshair's the eye in the sky. Could Omega take on a Barbara Gordon Oracle kind of role for the team?
I mean, it's possible. It certainly keeps her safer physically until she's at this level. I don't know if there's enough episodes left to establish that. I mean, that could be an overarching thing to get into the second season and have her her specific role. It's a good thought. I like it because it could be either thing, and both things satisfy me. Neither one of them is a bad option. If she's force sensitive, awesome. If she's just super wicked Django Fett instinct, then wicked. Neither one bothers me at all.
Well, I made that joke last night as we were talking before, as we were getting ready to get together today, and I said, they've already made her a Fett. If they make her a Fett and a force user, wow, that's a whole lot of awesomeness packed into one character. And
Did you not jam lightsabers in Boba Fett's hand when you were a kid, though? Isn't that what you wanted more than anything? In my head canon, when I was like 10 years old, Boba Fett was the other that Yoda spoke about. Before I saw Return of the Jedi, he was the other.
There's another. It's this guy.
It's that guy. 100%.
I had said last night that if they go so far, if they run with Omega and she's becomes a legacy character going forward, if they make her a force user and a Fett, any comments about Rey being a Mary Sue will sound like a compliment.
Let's just make her the Padawan of Ahsoka Tano and get it over with.
Okay. Oh, that's good.
So we might be closer than we actually think on this one, though, because in the previous episodes, like, they paired her up. Like when they were hunting for that one piece of equipment, they paired her up with Hunter.
That's right. Yeah.
And then during the trying to retrieve the tactical droid, they put her in kind of a crosshair position.
Yeah.
And then on
that whole training thing.
With Wrecker.
And then again on the bridge of the ship with Tech.
Yeah.
So she's kind of taking her, lessons with each of them.
That's true.
To put her closer to that Barbara Gordon.
She's definitely a sponge when it comes to taking stuff in. That's for sure.
And apparently Bobby Fischer at the same time.
Yeah, really. All right. In a wine cellar below the Senate building, Captain Bragg, along with an interrogation droid, begin to interrogate Senator Singh. She accuses him of defying imperial law and openly encouraging civil discord. And even though he's bound to a chair, the senator defiantly proclaims that his loyalty is to the people and not the empire, adding that their draconian tactics won't work on him. At that point, Captain Bragg moves aside, motioning her interrogator droid forward before the droid can inject him. A smoke grenade goes off, and a volley of stun blast fills the room, subduing the Imperials. It's Hunter, Tech, and GS8 who's still clutching the vase from the scene before. Checking the security system, Tech informs them that their position has been compromised. Rushing outside onto an observation deck, the batch see a large force of clones and walkers moving to surround the Senate building. This is part of that response thing maybe that you were talking about, Andy, how fast people just kind of showed up.
Yeah.
But this whole sequence here, so now like this is the heavy duty action sequence of the show this week. And man, this is that I can remember early on and as a young teenager playing the Star Wars RPG, Hank, and that like never ending supply of stormtroopers that just kept coming wave after wave after wave after wave. Yeah. And to me, it really felt like some of those early RPG sessions that I had played where I'm like, oh, these guys have the same sort of thought process that I do, where like, as the guy who's running the game, I can never run out of bad guys.
No, it's true. And I mean, they're nothing if not dramatic. Like there's no practicality to big giant walkers that are approaching you slowly from the snow when you could just blow up the shield generator from space, like it's all about just bravado and fear tactics and stuff. So
absolutely,
it oodles of stormtroopers pouring over the ridges. It's perfect. And that's exactly what, we would, 5 stormtroopers is boring when we know that, the 3 of us could take 5 stormtroopers. We need to up the ante.
this whole sequence here, the going back and forth from walker to walker, and then like wave after wave of troops, and then there's a scene where a shot where the camera's it's high and pulled back, and you actually see like how tight the quarters are that they're maneuvering in. And I'm like, living here where we are, there's a street where it's clearly marked no trucks, and every year a truck goes down that street and it clips a bridge. I had visions of the walkers knocking out corners of buildings. That's how tight it is in this episode, right?
Yeah, perfect. It's also hard to watch them be the bad guys. These the silhouettes, if you will, of the troops, and the shapes of the ships in unfamiliar situations, because now we're fighting for our lives against them, and it's still harrowing. Like it's a reminder that this is a broken. The way things ended was just so catastrophically horrible.
Yeah. From their high vantage point, the batch assault one of the walkers using zip lines to board it. With a few well-placed ion grenades and stun blasts, they subdue the crew and quickly commandeer it. As they continue to make their escape, the batch, spotted now by Captain Bragg, orders another walker to begin firing at them, and a well-placed artillery round strikes them in the hindquarters and immobilizes their walker.
There's a great comedy beat when they jump on, though, with the zip line.
With Wrecker
and the senator. He's like, I can't do that. And he's like, you afraid of heights?
Yeah.
Close your eyes.
Hold on, or whatever he says. Yeah, and he's like, grumbling about having to go down the zip line. All right. So, but the damage to the walker isn't critical, and Tech informs him that it can be recalibrated, but it must be done manually and from the outside. As the second walker closes in, Hunter and Wrecker dismount and fan out in an effort to hold them off, while Tech and Echo set to work on the damaged axle. And in a well-coordinated attack, using similar tactics to those they used to commandeer their own walker, the two clones subdue yet another walker. But it's to no avail, as a well-placed artillery round from yet a third walker destroys the one that they are presently standing on. Fortunately, Hunter and Wrecker are able to leap away just in time, but the third walker, supported now by more Imperial troops, pushes forward into the courtyard. So this is this like really tense moment where the retired service person in me kind of goes like, oh, as far as military engagements goes, this is this situation that no commander wants to find themselves in, where you have a superior number of opponents, and they are so aggressive and they are moving so fast that all you can do is react. As a soldier, you never want to react to the enemy. You always want to have them react to you, and that's not the case here. And the guys are
Kobayashi Maru.
They're pinned down. Yeah. The unwinnable scenario, I believe we call that. Pinned down behind one of the legs of the destroyed walker, Hunter presses Tech for a sit rep. Tech tells him that he needs more time, but before he can turn his attention back to the repairs, he and Echo are overrun by Imperial troops. But from the belly of the walker, an unseen Senator Singh snatches the priceless vase from GS8's hands and hurls it at one of the troopers, striking him in the head. Oh, I loved it. And then, of course, he comes out and he's like, I never much cared for that vase.
Awesome.
So much for the priceless vase that, GS8 must be like, oh my God, what are you doing?
Yeah, they held on to it this long.
Yeah.
It's funny to see them fixate on, the 3PO does that. It'll fixate on a certain thing, make it uber important, but it's innocuous.
Yeah, exactly. How many times? There's only so many ways you can tell me the odds, man. Like, I don't need to hear it anymore. Just keep it to yourself. So a few seconds later, the recalibration is complete and the clones are back on the move. From the cockpit, Senator Singh points down an alleyway. Tech remarks that it appears like a choke point, and the senator replies, "You're just going to have to trust me." where are we going here? There we go. Yeah, so we get the senator who's pointing, and I mean, for Tech, who's pretty much a call it like it is kind of guy, kind of denote a little bit of nervousness there, which is kind of odd for him because he's so deadpan in everything that he says.
Well, without knowledge of further what his options are down that turn, he sees that as a losing choice.
That's true. But the Imperial troops, which now consist of at least 3 more walkers and a dozen or more troops, continue the pursuit. Arriving at the dead end, Senator Singh has Tech position the walker parallel to a stone wall. Opening an exterior hatch, he points to a spot on the wall and asks the clones to blow a hole in it, saying that it leads to a subterranean passage. And there he is, kind of poking at the wall. Wrecker accommodates the request by placing an explosive on the wall and then closes the armored hatch. When the explosion clears, the group flee the walker into the subterranean passage just as the pursuing artillery places another well-placed shot, destroying their walker. But as the group make their way through the tunnels, Wrecker stops to plant another explosive, sealing the opening behind them.
Smarter than he looks.
Absolutely. There's a great, I'll get to it in a minute, but there's a great moment with him coming up that I just love. Like, it's probably the most mature thing. It's immature at the same time, but it's very like football jock, but it was so appropriate for the moment.
Yeah, he's still my favorite clone 10 episodes in.
Now clear of the city, the Bad Batch, along with Senator Singh and GS-8, make their way through the forest back to the Havoc Marauder. And as they board the ship, the Senator pauses to question his actions.
Should point out, though, the door was closed this time. They had to open it.
So somebody took the keys with them this time.
They locked the ship this time.
It's about time. Fearing that he's abandoning his people, Senator Singh says that he has to help them. And supportively, GS-8 says, "You will, but not if you're in Imperial custody." In a huge moment for Echo, he agrees with the droid, adding, "Live to fight another day."
Common ground.
And there it is. Here's the guy who 10 minutes ago was pinning your droid against a wall, ready to murder it, wants nothing to do with this mission at all because it's a separatist thing. And now he's finally hit that, like, oh, maybe there's more here common between us than I originally thought.
It's kind of
certainly there's a level of
what's that?
Yeah, well, certainly there's a level of trust now that's been established. Here's my dangerous plan. It worked. Okay.
Yeah.
And kind of a Captain America Falcon moment, because it's like, same people shooting at you are shooting at me now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The enemy of my enemy.
Oh.
Right.
And with that, they board the Havoc Marauder and leave Raxus. Arriving back at Sid's place, the Batch are taken back by the whooping and cheering coming from the bar. They look puzzled as more and more people rush to get inside the building. Once inside, they can see that the room is full, and all eyes are on Omega, who is presently playing a game of Dejarik against a Pantoran opponent. Sid is standing behind her with a hand on her shoulder. Omega, seeing the clones have just returned, waves to them before making her final move to win the game. Hunter shoots a disapproving look at Sid, who then promptly closes all betting. Beaming with excitement, Omega grins ear to ear as Sid exclaims, "She's a natural! I've never seen anything like it!" But Hunter, missed the point here. Yeah. Right, but Hunter admonishes her, saying that he told her to keep a low profile while they were gone, and this is the furthest thing from it. As the smile drops from Omega's face, Sid plays a little pokey chest with Hunter, telling him to ease up, because Omega just earned enough money to pay off their debt, so he should try and show a little gratitude towards her friend.
Also, he's got kind of a lot of nerve here. They just went in clone armor, in Bad Batch armor, to an Imperial-controlled former capital world of the Confederacy and kidnapped a senator. If that doesn't go right back to Tarkin, Come on. So who's laying low? Who's laying low?
Yeah, really.
That's a crazy thing.
You won
That's
some money
funny.
in a known criminal like underworld bar.
Because Tarkin right now is like, Vader, go get him. I've had enough of this.
Really? All right. As Sid ushers Senator Singh and GS8 back to her office, Wrecker, and here's the part. Here's the jock thing, which I think is so super cool. Wrecker literally shoulder checks Hunter and gives him like an FU look as he pushes past him before he heads off with the rest of the team. It's such a cool moment for Wrecker. Like, pardon my language, but it was like the big fuck you moment. You're a fucking idiot. Especially when you go back, and I know I didn't get it, put it in the notes, but back at the beginning when Hunter was talking about Omega needing a rest, he's like, she looks fine to me.
Yeah.
He was completely like, let her make her own decisions.
Yeah.
And and Hunter was like, no, she needs a rest.
And they're dynamic, more like a brother than a father.
Yeah.
Well, we did miss one part when they're on mission, and Tech is with Hunter. Hunter says you and Echo, or
that's
you and
right.
Omega. Sorry,
that's right.
And he's like,
that's impossible because she's not here. That's right.
And
so he is starting to become, reliant on her being part of the squad.
It shows you where his mind is. It shows you like what's on the forefront of his mind is his concern for Echo. In that moment, he's like, okay, so concern for Omega. We both did it. No, that's okay. But that's his foremost concern is Omega. So, and it Freudians out there.
So now alone, Hunter asks Omega, you really paid off our debt? And Omega tells him that she wanted to be useful even if she couldn't go on the mission. And in a very insightful moment, Hunter resets the Dejarik table, asking Omega, how about we put those strategy skills to the test? And they sit down, and it's one match. And if she can win against Hunter, she won't have to sit out any more missions. Facing each other, Hunter asks Omega, are you ready for this? And with a smirk, she replies, are you? And that's the end of our episode. So it's funny though. I mean, it doesn't matter because it's all off camera now. We know she's going to win. But I'm screaming like, is she going to legitimately win or is he going to let her win? I know like it doesn't matter because it achieves that, this is his way of maybe saving face in like, I can lose this. She feels validated that she's still part of the team. And now I don't have to say, I'm sorry for not taking you with me in the first place.
Yeah. Also, I think he's testing her really for real.
For real, for sure.
I think he plays her hard and I think she beats him.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the funny part. This is the cool part about stuff like this is because it's off camera, we as the viewers get to decide how that plays out. And so I think that's kind of a fun little
right. It'll be unspoken too. And it'll just be a matter of fact when you don't see her taking any time off, or if time off is organic, maybe we'll get an answer 4 episodes, maybe halfway through next season. Who knows?
Maybe we'll get it in the rematch where she just trounces him and he's like, I don't want to play you anymore.
It reminded me of the way in KOTOR that you actually, one of the first ways you get to make money is through gambling.
Oh, that's right.
In a card game, so it's a little bit of a dip into that. It's like a legitimate way your character becomes famous at Sabak, or it's a version of Sabak, I think.
So 60%, we don't get a credit value of how much they're into her for, but man, 60%. So like, how much money did she really win?
Yeah, I mean, ostensibly she'd been playing the whole time. And how long were they gone?
I don't know.
How long was that mission? A week, a couple days? It's hard to tell.
Sure.
It seems like it was hours, but maybe not. Certainly you could win a lot of money in one round.
Well, chances are it was multiple rounds. Like, hey, step up and challenge this kid, right?
No, exactly. And it had drawn a crowd, so it had been going on for a while. A little bit of the Last Starfighter type thing going on there.
Yeah. So we started this episode, and initially my initial thoughts were, of all the episodes to date, this one was the filler episode. But Andy, you had said
I look at it more as a breather episode.
The breather episode, and I think that is a far better,
because they don't let you forget. They say, Omega, you got to take a break because there's still 2 bounty hunters coming after you. Yeah, so we're not done with them. They're coming back along with who knows what else. Probably.
Yeah. And it's like we said in The Mandalorian, you take that deep breath before you jump off the cliff, right? And we some major things that are established is Omega is integral to the team.
Yep.
No more side mission kind of things, and now we've lost our reliance on Sid, right? Whether she can now, maybe she becomes an adversary at this point since they don't owe her anything,
right?
Certainly, they're worth more to her in her camp. But so we've sort of wrapped that storyline up as well. We're no longer indentured servants, so now we're on our own ostensibly.
On the Sid connection, we talked about her as the frenemy, thinking that it was only a matter of time before the double cross or the sellout was coming. How do we feel about that now that she's actually come out and referred to Omega as her friend?
I think she's on the side of them. She won't sell them out.
Yeah. No, I don't feel that. And I also don't feel we'll return there much more. I think her sort of usefulness as a plot device has reached its apex. I mean, it could be for information later, or she's a good enough character, and Rhea Perlman's amazing in it, and it's not lost on me that she's running Cheers there, right?
Yeah.
Dorian and the Weequay are Norman and Cliff. That stuff is not lost on me. So it's it'd be a fun bar to return to in the future and see if she's like Maz Kanata and still running things. I think that would be kind of neat. But so many subtle things that were really strong in moving the narrative to where we need to be a cohesive team with Omega solidly a functioning part of the team with everyone's trust, and because now we're going to move forward at a breakneck pace, and we're going to see some Boba Fett, and we're going to need her to be at her best and for them to be at their best to deal with that however it comes.
Yeah, I mean, that whole family dynamic is going to get challenged again when there is a literal family reunion of sorts. And that's probably going to, bring up some more questions about, it's like when what's that, the DC movie, Superman, Batman, Apocalypse, when Supergirl shows up and everybody wants to get their hands on Supergirl to sort of mold her and form her.
Who should train her? Who should raise her?
Yeah. Right. We make it some of that dynamic.
Definitely. And Boba would definitely feel like, blood, as it were.
There's some obligation there. Yeah.
Clones. Yeah. Right.
Chain code, brother. Chain code.
All right, did you notice that her bandoleer's back this week?
It didn't leave.
It did for when Cad Bane had her. She was stripped of all her stuff.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And now she's got her stuff back. And
minus
I think
the comm link,
but right. She was even wearing it while she was woodying the bar there.
I was curious to know if she was going to get that replaced, and I still think on some level
the armor set is coming. More armor will build.
I think so, and if it doesn't, I would like it to. Although
it'd be kind of cool if Boba gave her some armor.
Well, there's another element. There's some Beskar in this here show. Either way, I'm super excited to get to next week to see where we go next. The joke last week was you're never going back to Camino, which really means you're going back to Camino.
Yeah.
So we've got some stuff to tie up there.
Huge dangling threads that weren't even addressed in this episode, right? It's almost like if you go too long, you'll forget that there's all these other moving parts. Rampart. So I was just talking about Rampart. We've got a new Imperial this week. We've got Captain Bragg. Is she gonna be recurrent? Is she gonna report to Rampart? Who's gonna report to Tarkin? Who's going to
report to the Emperor?
Yeah, who knows?
I think it helps just flesh things out. I don't know if they want to get too colluded with, certainly you're going to probably have, like what I said is they're on the phone with Tarkin right now. They didn't do a light thing here. They were clearly the Bad Batch. They clearly kidnapped a senator. They clearly,
it's
they're
those
not
same guys that you were talking to like a week ago.
They've just popped up on the radar in the largest way.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Sid probably couldn't even keep the Empire from finding them now.
That's what I mean, though. Like, on some level, like you say, they're probably done with her. But I was thinking, does she still serve a purpose in, like, if nothing else, it's their home base. But if the home base is compromised, and like you say, the Empire's coming with a zeal that you can't contain, they got to go somewhere.
Yeah. And that's their MO. They overpower you with numbers and fanfare and flags that say the Empire. So,
and that could be sort of the way that they part ways. Maybe, Sid's operation is literally torn asunder. The infrastructure is torn out from under her.
Right, just like the castle of Maz Kanata.
Yeah, exactly. You just destroy the place.
Yeah, figure the Imperials are going to be coming in the front door, and she's going to be helping them escape out
but
the back.
She's a wily one. She's a survivor. I bet, even if they took the whole building down around her, I bet you she makes it out.
Yeah.
And given her underworld connections, maybe that is another way to introduce some other unsavory characters that we all want to see.
Like we were joking around last week, perhaps Boba's connection to her is that she is a relative of Bosk, and she calls Bosk in for help, and there's Boba.
That's right. Well, exactly, because look at that episode back in Clone Wars where they're in prison together. The fight with Obi-Wan / Rocco Hardeen,
right?
Where Bosk is like, you got a problem with Boba, you get a problem with me.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly there's a relationship there. So I mean, it's not a far stretch to go back and say, is that Bosk's mom?
Yeah,
maybe.
And it's also not a stretch to think that if Django trained Cad Bane, and Cad Bane, at least in the legends and stuff, trained Boba, that may put him initially at odds with Fennec Shand. So there might, so he might come in Cad Bane's camp and discover. It's almost more organic if he discovers Omega as his sister than to actually be called in and go, "Hey, come find your sister."
So, and it serves it's a dual service there to connect him to Omega, the new sister, which puts him right back at odds with Cad Bane and that whole
right. So there's a lot of as much that didn't happen in this episode. It actually is a launch board for many different possible directions.
Yeah, big springboard this week. So again, I thought it started with thinking it was a filler, and I'm ending on lots of nuance. Nice break. We got to have our breather, and now we get to suck back and reload for the next launch, which it's only a week away.
Yep.
Wicked.
Few more episodes to go before we hit the end of this one. Before we get going today, I just want to close off on some more Star Wars rumors.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys catch the rumors for the Obi-Wan series this last week?
I don't know. I've got some different ones, so go ahead. Yeah.
I am super excited because some of my favorite villains that go all the way back to the D6 Star Wars West End Games RPG are rumored to be coming to live action in the Obi-Wan series. And what a way. We've sort of questioned this. How does Obi-Wan have an adventure on Tatooine if he doesn't go anywhere? Well, you bring the action to him in the form of Inquisitors.
It's true.
So, there's a rumor that live action Inquisitors are going to show up and try to hunt him. And that would be cool. So that's my news this week.
That's awesome.
Other Obi-Wan news, didn't Ewan McGregor just have a kid?
He did. Yes, he did.
So congratulations to him.
Yeah.
He can afford it.
That's that's it for me this week. I've really got nothing else to add. I'm super excited about where we're going.
So the Fennec Shand actress, my goodness, she did an interview where she talked about during the filming of the first 4 episodes of Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett, the scripts were literally numbered 301, 302, 303, and 304. She thought she was filming Mandalorian season 3. In fact, everybody on set, even though Robert Rodriguez was involved, thought they were filming and it wasn't until like she realized she was in the 5th episode and then read scripts and oh, wait a minute. So I mean, it's not such an Easter egg or anything, but they took to calling the filming of this project, which is wrapped now, by the way.
Yeah.
Calling it a Mandalorian season 3.5 is what they were calling
3.5. I know it's been kind of publicly the same way that our animation is now dipping in and out of each other. They were pretty public about saying that these live action shows were going to have some cross pollination, and
that's right.
But that's a cool way to do it, because I mean, what's the other, the other shocker is 301. Like, are you giving me season 3 scripts in season 1 because you've got an order for that many and shoot stuff out of order because it's relevant?
Could be.
And
that's cool.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was the canceled Seth Green Disney Star Wars show. Geez, I don't know if I can remember what it's called now. Oh, that's horrible. Oh my goodness. It was like Disjointed or something like that. Forgive me, everyone. But it was a Star Wars comedy show that was 39 episodes are complete, 65 scripts are written. Seth Green and his partner Ben Seinrich from Robot Chicken worked on this with George Lucas for 4 years. And then George Lucas sold to Disney and they canned it. And he's recently tried to get it back, saying, can we get it on Disney Plus? And he's been met with no. Basically, no. It's not
Star Wars
work.
Detours.
Thank you very much. Now, there are clips out there on YouTube you can watch. There's a real good one with Han Solo. And
Star Wars Detours is an unaired American CGI animated comedy series. It is differentiated from the other Star Wars animated series in that it is a parody of the franchise, offering a comedic take on what happened between the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. Has 39 produced episodes over 2 seasons, produced by George Lucas, Seth Green, and Matthew Seinrich.
Matt Seinrich,
yeah.
It'll probably never see the light of day except for the odd YouTube clip. But the article that I read was almost an interview with Seth Green, where he said, "I don't give a flying F if it ever sees the light of the day, because I got to work for 4 years every day with my hero." And I made him laugh every day, and he made me laugh every day. And I worked on Star Wars in such an intimate way. Like we were able to parody it and tear it to pieces, and and have fun with it in a way that you could never have. And it made me like, and now that he's back in the fold playing Toto 360 again, it just makes me such a fan of that guy. Actually,
Listen,
on a level that I never was before.
I wouldn't hold
a cool person, man.
I would hold out for some hope that there is a chance. And the reason I say that is Lucas, who completely disavowed the holiday special, well, even that got overturned to some degree when they plucked the faithful Wookiee right out of the holiday special and tossed it up on Disney Plus. So,
that's right.
There's some precedence there, I'd say, for that to happen.
There's a lot of chatter on the people I usually don't pay any attention to. I don't even want to give their names out here, but they're all usually very negative about the property, are all saying that there's been like this internal coup that Jon Favreau is finally going to undo the sequels, and that George Lucas is back involved. And
we've all heard that,
and it just keeps going and going and going. But certainly George Lucas has been involved with The Mandalorian in terms of.
We've always said that, there's nothing that, and of course now it's hugely public now that his position has been updated, but we've always said, like, I can't imagine there's anything that Jon Favreau does in Star Wars that he doesn't go, hey, Dave, what do you think?
Yeah. I completely agree. And if Dave and George aren't still close, there's probably exactly. And and let's not forget that there's $4 billion in Disney shares that George Lucas controls as well.
That's right.
Beyond the $4 billion in cash that he got, he also is majority shareholder of Disney.
Yes, I mean he's got a stake.
Right, and
he's a stakeholder.
Right, and I think that he's just living his life and going, no, that's not the way Han Solo acts. and now back to my beach, kind of thing. Yeah, and perfect.
Yeah. Hey, George, we got a question for you. Just ask Dave.
American Graffiti 3.
All right. Any more before we sign off today?
I got nothing.
Okay. Well, guys, it's been another amazing episode of The Bad Batch, and it has been yet another amazing episode of our little show here, The Fan Batch. And we love what we're doing. We hope you do too. And until next week, my friends, same batch time, same batch channel, and we'll catch you next week. Bye for now, guys.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Fandom Power. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll be talking about another one of your favorite fandoms. Fandom Power is a Sawcast production.